You're listening to the Bleav in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Bleav in Giants, presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, and we're joined by Bleav's own Bucky Brooks and the Bucky Brooks Show. Bucky, thanks for joining us. The draft is in the rearview mirror. We want to get your take on the Giants draft, and especially your thought on them getting Arvell Reese. A lot of people didn't think he'd be there at 5, but there he was.
Yeah, no, I think one, it's great to be back on with you guys. But Arvell Reese being there at 5 is a nice move for the New York Giants. I think there was a lot of conversation about a linebacker being there, but notably it was Sonny Styles as opposed to Arvell Reese. I think in the days leading up to the draft, I think there was some concern about, okay, do we want to take a project in the top 10, like someone who's only had 1 year of experience, or do we want a guy that has played a little longer? But when you look at Arvell Reese, I would say the upside is tremendous. Outstanding athlete, high football IQ in terms of like when he gets on the field and being able to do a bunch of different things. The versatility shows up on the tape in terms of being an off-ball linebacker with pass rushing skills. And then when you just talk about the effort and the violence that he plays with, to me, he plays like an old school New York Giant. And when you look at this front 7, they now have that feel of the classic Giants defensive teams.
Bucky, you guys do such a good job of prospecting players and giving fans such great information that it caused a problem on draft day because everyone was so sold on Sonny Styles. And then the projection of Arvell Reese as a potential really good pass rusher, but he wasn't the best pass rusher in the draft. So when Reese was drafted, people were like, well, why? You guys are going to regret this. We're going to regret not taking Sonny Styles as our off-ball linebacker. And I was like, you guys fell victim to really good information, but you didn't really look at anyone else outside you convincing yourself that Styles was the guy. And I looked at Sonny Styles, and if they would have taken him, it would have been great. But I see Sonny Styles and Tremaine Edmunds as the same player. And Arvell Reese is just kind of the counter of that. So when I looked at it, I was like, fans, calm down. This kid can play. He's an off-ball linebacker. And then everyone ran to the film, and they said, well, he's playing edge here. He's playing edge. I'm like, well, folks, that's how football works. That's how Matt Patricia operates. He's going to use his players the best way he sees them. And fans and this is not a critique of fans. They're a victim of overstimulation at times, and then just information that they form in their head. They think an off-ball linebacker that teams line up players, and you got, 2 guys inside, 2 guys outside. They don't move. Good coaches move their players around, and what you have to do is look at when that player is off ball, what he does. Does he play downhill? Does he play well in coverage? Is he a striker? And then you say, well, he can do more than that, and that's why Matt Patricia moved Arvell Reese around a lot. Like, that's just like saying Pepper Johnson is an inside linebacker when we played, but he rushed the passer too. Like, just like you said, he's an off-ball linebacker with pass rush skills, and that's what teams will use these guys for.
It's funny that the feeling that you get from Giants fan is there was a preference of Sonny Styles over Arvell Reese. If you really go through and you look at Ohio State and you look at the pecking order, you can make the argument, okay, yeah, Caleb Downs was the brains behind the outfit. He was the traffic cop in the back end, making sure everyone was directed and protected and doing the things that they were supposed to do. But there was no doubt when you look at the tape who the designated playmaker was. Arvell Reese was that designated playmaker. Off-ball linebacker, if they needed someone to spot a quarterback, who got that responsibility? Arvell Reese. If they needed to rush the passer, who got that responsibility? Arvell Reese. And so they're telling you, without telling you, who they prioritize as the best defender. And to me, I think Arvell Reese is well prepared to go in the league and play a variety of roles. Now, will he be able to do everything at one time as a rookie? Probably not. But if you put him in a role where we're saying, hey, we're going to let you play over, we're going to let you play off-ball linebacker. You can be a ball defender. And then in these sub packages that everyone gets into, by the middle of the season, you'll see him come off the edge and do some things. And texting with some coaches in that building, they talked about, think Micah Parsons. Think about how they used Micah Parsons for the Cowboys and the problems that created. Being able to put that off-ball linebacker one-on-one on the guard who is not used to dealing with speed and athleticism is an advantage. To me, it's a great pick, not only individually as the player, but now when you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together for this front. And I'm just thinking about this front that you have to deal with Brian Burns on one edge, Kayvon Thibodeau on another edge. You got Abdul Carter, who can come from anywhere. You now have another piece in Arvell Reese. Like, where are you going to slide the protection? At some point, there is going to be a weak link where you have an advantage. To me, this is everything that I think Denard Wilson could dream of when it comes to, hey, I got all these weapons. Let's go play. I think it makes the defense significantly better.
Bucky, you know what else I liked? I like that Harbaugh diffused any controversy right out of the gate. Like, no, we have to see, they're still rookies. Wait until they get here. He's like, no, he's starting next to Tremaine Edmunds on the inside as an off-ball linebacker. We talk so much about like these quarterbacks getting drafted and like, ooh, they've got, like Jackson Dart had Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in the same room. Unbelievable for his development. Maybe sometimes we don't talk enough about, you're drafting a guy like Arvell Reese. He's going to line up and be coached while he's playing, the little nuances by Tremaine Edmunds. Like, we never talk about that with other positions, but you imagine lining up on the inside and you got Edmunds right next to you, just running through little checklists with you just to remind you and help you grow. It's invaluable experience he's going to get, unlike a quarterback, while actually playing.
I mean, I think everybody understands, and Carl knows this because he's been a vet. Every rookie needs to have a vet that they can kind of pattern their game after, pattern their habits after. And hopefully in that room, you have a high-end professional that shows you how to study, how to prepare, how to go through practice, the things that you need to do pre-practice and post-practice to be able to play at a high level. Then in game, someone that can look over and be like, hey, remember, third down, this is what we're thinking. Here's where it's coming. That allows you to play one step faster. All of those things are important. And I'm going to say this, and I know we'll get to it. I just love what John Harbaugh has done. I think he's been very clear about creating the kind of culture that you need to win and be successful. I just think the front seven, that defense, the way the team is put together, the expectations and standards that they've already creating. And then let's get through look, no need to play games with the young player. Here's where you're playing. You're going to start when we run out in minicamp. You're going to be right here. Right. Let's get this going so you know exactly what it is. To me, that's what pro ball is. And that's what it's going to be. And I think the Giants have very much improved because of that.
And I think that's important also. And then I'm just going to go back before we go forward a little bit. The other thing, when you talk about Harbaugh, and then we hear on the networks pre-draft with positional value. This team, you can't take this guy because his positional value. And I'm like, well, if you look at a team, you'll know what positions they value. You look at how Harbaugh is building this football team. He wants big, strong, aggressive players. That's what they value. So I don't think, they're looking and saying, well, in 5 years, we won't be able to sign him again, so we won't draft him. And that, I think, gets in people's heads too. It's like, well, his positional value, if you got a great player and you have a spot for a great player, you take it. I could see if you don't need a quarterback and you draft one, that's dumb. But like, positional value is what teams value on their roster. And these guys do that. But, I look at John Harbaugh and when he selected, when they selected Maui Noah, I was like, yep, they're gonna play bully ball on both sides. And when I spoke with Coach, about a month ago, he talked about not facing second and longs. He said it's hard to block defenses when you're in second and long. He's like, we need to be able to be physical and force our will and stay in manageable down and distance. And you just look at the guys, not just that he drafted, right? He kept Evan Neal there to give him a look, a real clean slate. And he's a big body. He's a large human being. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying they're going to be a physical team in a division where really it was only one physical team, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles. They want to match the Eagles' physicality, and then they want to match them with skill as well.
You know, it's funny, Carl. This goes back to a conversation I had a long time ago with Jerry Reese. And Jerry Reese said when he was coming up in the business under George Young said, we're called the Giants for a reason. This is a game that is ruled by the biggest men on earth. And when the Giants are the Giants, is because we impose our will physically on people at the point of attack. And that always resonated with me when he talked about the Giants and how the Giants should look and how they should play. So when I think about Francis Mauigoa and I think about the way this offensive line is constructed, I keep going back to those classic teams because I believe every organization has a blueprint for success that has worked for them. It's a tried and true formula that never fails. And when I look at the Super Bowl teams that the Giants have had, the common denominator has been great defense and the ability to be able to run the football when everyone in the stadium knows that you have to run the football. And I just believe that in spite of the flashes that Jackson Dart showed last year that were impressive, they want to run the football to take pressure off of him, but they also want to run the football because it allows them to control the game. And if you can control the game, it gives you a shot to always be in the fourth quarter. And for a team that is looking to go from good to great, that is what it's about. Let's get into the fourth quarter and find a way to win those games. And given what they've done with Mauigoa up front, being able to continue to get bigger and more physical, having a big guy in Malachi Fields to complement Malik Neighbors, this is a big football team. And you already know that they're going to play a rock'em sock'em type of game that is going to force you to get into the fourth quarter and have to win it.
You know, and Bucky, again, going back to Harbaugh, right? He doesn't dance around like, well, he could be a swing tackle. We're going to work him here. We're going to work him there. It's like, no, he's the starting right guard. He's the starting right guard. Like, let's not mess around here. We'll worry about that other stuff down the road, but he's starting at right guard. End of story.
Well, I mean, so I think what's so refreshing and probably what is maybe hard for some Giants to fathom is like the guy's no nonsense. He's cutting through the chase. Like all of this is like what I call old school pro football. I remember walking into the building with the Buffalo Bills. They say, hey, this is where it is. You're going to be in this position. This is where you're on the depth chart. You figure it out. You got to work your way up from there. I think is how it's a man's game. And that's how you have to treat men. You treat them like men. You have real direct conversation. And then what they do with that is on them. And I think they've laid out the blueprint for both of their first round picks. Here's how you get onto the field. This is where you're going to play. So in your preparation, you don't have all this clutter. This is what you're doing. Get focused on doing that. And if you do that well, then other opportunities will come for you.
You know, in team building, Bucky, I've noticed, offenses are always a step ahead of defenses in terms of, how things trend. And because you see how big the Giants are, and then you see how big the Ravens were, and you look at that AFC North division that they were in, they had big players throughout that division. And I say, well, defenses are still, I call them ghosts, but they still exist. Spread offenses, super fast guys on the outside, and you got to have small personnel and guys that can rush the passer. And the rushing numbers continue to get better every season because teams are running on light boxes. And personnel people are drafting smaller players thinking, hey, we got to be able to get out in space and cover in space. Well, offenses are seeing that, and I use Buffalo as an example. As good as Josh Allen is, they had a 1,600-yard rusher because they were taking advantages of smaller defenses. And then No one said that you can't have big guys who can run. Like Tremaine Edmunds he's 6'4", 250. He's got 14 career interceptions. So you got to have good athletes in the box now and not worry so much about, well, they could throw the ball all over the lot. Well, there's another thing that's trending too, is the good quarterbacks are getting older, and a lot of mediocre guys are entering the league, and offensive coaches are not trusting these guys with the full arsenal of their offense. It's just not that many fully equipped quarterbacks right now where you've got to defend all these things. They're relying on the run game and counting on your light box to stay light so that their quarterback can get program success. Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. I see it that way because the league is a copycat league. So Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator, the Philadelphia Eagles, he started a trend when he started using 2 high safeties, light boxes, filling the numbers with second-level defenders that are just kind of running into those gaps from afar as opposed to being right at the line of scrimmage. What that did is that took away all of the big plays in the passing game. It dared offenses to nickel and dime the ball down the field or to be willing to die a slow death, meaning they'll let you run it for 4 and 5 yards, but that's not the big plays, and they're banking on the odds working against you that you can't avoid a penalty or avoid a miscue. They push you behind the chains. And we talked about second and long being a dangerous down. They're waiting for that mistake so then they can get after you and get you off the field. Well, the smart offenses are saying, well, if you're going to play these light boxes, we're going to put the big boys in. That's why you're seeing more teams have multiple tight ends. You saw the draft have teams drafting 2 tight ends so they can get in 12 and 13 personnel because they're going to run those little guys off the field. And what you have to do as a defensive coordinator now, you're Denard Wilson, you have to make sure that you have enough bigs in the hopper to be able to deal with the running game while still being able to do some of those things to prevent the big plays. You want to build your team with enough flexibility and versatility to adapt to anything that you're seeing and being able to do it on the fly in moment. So that is a big part of it. But yes, to your point about the quarterbacks in the league, the best way to protect the quarterbacks is to run it, to use play action to create big plays. Because at some point, I don't care how long you've been in this league, if you're a defensive coordinator, the thing that drives you crazy if someone is running the ball down your throat. It only takes a few big runs for you to drop that safety in the box. And then that opens up the one-on-ones on the outside for the big plays in the passing game.
Carl, I know you got a follow-up to that. Go ahead.
No, I just, I'm just looking, and these are the kind of inside football things that fans don't necessarily get on a, just watching film basis. When you really do have to look at trends, like Bucky said, the copycat nature of the league, and we're going to see more of bigger personnel as quarterback. As you get the new influx of quarterbacks who are just not as good, or it's going to take time for them to get to the next level. This is a great opportunity for defenses to really become more involved.
I heard you said it was a great opportunity for defense to become more evolved. And I think adaptability is everything because the teams that are winning now, like if you look at what the Seahawks were able to do, man, they can stop everything with a nickel and dime defense. But the key to it is having personnel that's big enough in those dime packages. So you can have your big nickel and your little nickel, your big nickel with 3 safeties that come on the field. And that third safety is a quasi linebacker that is okay getting in the mix and dealing with the run. You also have that with your dime personnel where you got guys buzzing around to stop the run. Versatility and adaptability is everything, and good defensive coordinators are able to do that, and they pride themselves in making sure that they have enough weaponry to be able to attack the offense as needed each and every week.
Bucky, fill in the blanks here a little bit with Colton Hood. I saw in a lot of people's mock drafts, he was kind of positioned somewhere on the back end of round number 1. Giants got him early in round number 2. Again, from what I understand and what I've seen, I don't study it like you do, but again, he brings a little bit of that physicality to this defense that Harbaugh's looking to install.
It is very clear what the New York Giants are doing. They're trying to get back to business when it comes to their physicality and toughness. I love Colton Hood. Had an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with him on air, and the thing that stands out to me is not only like the IQ and the physicality and stuff that you see on tape, but him being able to communicate exactly what he was thinking about when he's watching the tape and when he sees himself play back. The other part about it, you have to understand, he was a great high school baseball player. And to me, the scout in me loves multi-sport athletes, because if you can dominate another sport, it speaks volumes not only about your athleticism, but coachability, adaptability, versatility, all of those things. And then ball skills. Because if you can play in the outfield, you certainly can track and judge a ball. And so it's going to be easy for him on those tips and overthrows to make plays. To me, he really was a first-round talent. For whatever reason, he fell out of the first round. And I know mock drafts are different than like really scouting. But to me, when I looked at him, he's a starter that starts early in his career. And whether it's inside or outside or whatever, I think this guy's going to be a high-level player.
Well, Giant fans are going to be happy about
Jack
that.
Kelly, the BYU kid, Jack Kelly, really good player at BYU, played against, in the Big 12, played against some first-round tackles that were drafted this year, but yet he was drafted where he was. And what are some of the factors that says, okay, well, he's a good player, he's an NFL player, but despite the conference, despite the success, this is where he's slated to be drafted? Because everybody, there are a lot of good pass rushers in this draft, but he just fell. Or I don't know if he fell. Maybe that's where he was supposed to go.
No, I think there's something to, like, in the draft process when you're going through it. You have people that are projected to be in certain rounds. And what happens is sometimes the draft just makes turns. Like, there was a turn in the second round where we saw a bunch of tight ends go unexpectedly. We knew there was going to be a run. You just don't know when that run goes. And it leads to like a domino effect, much like the Cardinal Tate pick at 4 changes a bit of the first round. It's the same thing in those later rounds. And so with a guy like Jack Kelly, you could have him projected to be somewhere and you're looking, but then you're like, oh, well, this guy's available. So I'm going to take him and I'm going to circle back around and get him. And you look up and in a later round, he's still there. That's why when you're the Giants and you're setting your board and you're looking around, we always talk about, and people give scouts a hard time to talk about best player available. But there are some times where you go to fill needs, and there are other times where you're like, look, we can take this position here and fill a need, but this guy's the best guy on our board at this point. We're going to take him. Even though we may have a surplus at that position, he's a better player, and he was a better player. He's going to make our team better.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Matthias Kiwanuka story, when the Giants had all those pass rushers, and Ernie Accorsi said, you can't have enough pass rushers. He was the highest graded player, so we took him. We'll figure out a way to use him. And, Bucky, when you're in that room, you can sometimes get a little sidetracked, and teams do get sidetracked. But, the famous story is the Giants were talking about different players. They were in the third round, and Wellington Mara famously got up, didn't say a word, and walked right up to the little magnets that they had on the wall where they had the ranking of players. And he just stood in front of Justin Tuck's, his nose to Justin Tuck's draft grade card that was up on the, and he just stood there and he didn't say a word. And they were debating in the room, should we take this guy? Should we take this guy? And then everybody just kind of looked up and said, oh my gosh, he's got the highest grade by far on the board of our rankings. And then they all realized without him saying a word, oh, we're taking Justin Tuck. What are we doing over here? You can get sidetracked, right? In that room at times.
Yeah, you can. And there's so much clutter because you have so many names on the board. You have so many different things, and everyone has a different process. Now, I work with Joe Shane. We work together at the Carolina Panthers, and he's very involved in terms of his process, in terms of ranking guys horizontally, which is by position, and vertically, where you have the 1 to 150 or whatever. But yeah, you can get so sidetracked with your discussions that, oh, we got to make sure we get this player or this need and that need. We have these holes that sometimes you can look up on the board and be like, wow, why is this player still there? And then what you may do is call around to see, is there something that we're missing on him? Is there a medical thing or something that came late that we're missing? Because he was graded much higher in our room. We need to take him because we feel this strongly about him. If all the scouts feel strongly about him and we gave him this grade collectively, then there's a good thing. And there's something that Ron Wolf used to always say, you can never go wrong having good players. Like, I would rather have too many good players at one spot because you always can use that surplus to go and fill a need. You can trade off somebody or you can find a way to work it. But building strength on strength never hurts a team. And so if you have a great player that is on the board at a position where you feel pretty good at, you still can take him. And then, as you say, figure it out, because that is the coach's job to figure out how do we maximize the talent that we have available to us.
You know, and on that note, the coaching aspect, that was another part of the conversation I had with Coach Harbaugh. Was he wasn't bashing young coaches, but he's like, coaches have got to look at their personnel and know how to use them. It's not one size fits all the time. And you've got to know the type of players you have, and then you've got to be creative in getting them in the best positions. And he says a lot of young coaches are stuck into, this is my way. I'm going to install this, and this is what we're going to do. Then they find themselves not being able to make adjustments on the fly because, you know.
I would say, like, the thing about young coaches and coaches in general, experience brings a level of expertise. Harbaugh talking about old coaches and young coaches, and how older coaches, I'm assuming, have the ability, because they have so much wisdom because of experience, they're more prepared to adapt on the fly. Some of them, if they have a growth mindset. And there are things that old coaches can see and be like, oh, man, we went through this. I remember this back in 2015. We had a player like this. So this is what we're going to do with him. We're going to move him around. We're going to shuttle this or whatever. And that's what experience does. And in a league today that is increasingly younger on the sidelines with the coaches, there is something about a veteran coach that gives them an advantage, particularly when you have a veteran coaching staff as well. Man, just being able to go through those wars and understand what is required to win games, I think there's a confidence that some of these experienced coaches have that sets them apart from the younger guys, and it gives their teams a huge advantage when we get into the deep part of the season where injuries and other things play a part in who wins and who loses.
Here's the other thing too, Bucky. Just like players have to pay attention in meetings, especially young players, young coaches, all these young coaches have come from a veteran somewhere. They're a part of a tree. And I think it's important, not just the system that they were in, but the adjustments of those systems, so that when they get out on their own, it's just not a one size fit all. It's like, oh, this is what Nick Saban did. Oh, and we were in this situation, and this is how we adjusted, and we moved the safety when a guy went down. All of these different things. I think it's important for young coaches who aspire to be coordinators and head coaches to pay attention to the little things while you're in the early stages of your coaching career.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is much like a young player. It's understanding the whys behind what we're doing. Because if you're just copying plays, you're like, oh, I like this play, we're going to run this play. But you have to understand, well, why are we doing this? Why are we utilizing this? What situations should we use this for? What is the adjustment to when they adjust to what we're doing? It's having all of those things. And young coaches, all coaches, have to continue to evolve. They have to continue to study. They have to continue to work on their craft to be able to put their teams in the best position. And so from a schematic standpoint, it's knowing more, it's learning more, it's having these side conversations with other coaches and other teams to really get a great understanding of what is going on. But it's also sometimes hiring people that are not in your tree on that coaching staff that may be on the offensive or defensive side. So sometimes on defense, you need a guy from a West Coast system, even though you may not run it, to be able to go in the meeting room and be like, hey, you guys were a West Coast system when you were at such and such. How did you handle this? What's the best way? What gave you problems? Sometimes it's about the way that you stack your staff that allows you to grow, because you don't just have same size fits all. You have diversity on your staffs that changes, that allows you to have critical thought and critical thinking that takes place within the game planning process.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of guys do the whole crossover thing. I remember, Mike Nolan was a head coach. He was from the defensive side of the ball. And I think one year, I think it was in Baltimore, he was like the wide receiver coach because they wanted to get a different perspective. They wanted his perspective from the other side of the ball in the offensive meetings, like, how would you have been defending against us? So it's almost like a big think tank.
It is, and it should be. And having been someone that played wide receiver early in my career, then defensive back later, I can see the wisdom in that, because when you have worked on each side of the ball, they see it differently. I'm going to say this. I've sat in offensive meeting rooms and I've heard them talk about quarters coverage. And I'm like, that's not what we think about on defense. That's not how we attack it. That, like, you don't even understand the rules of what we're doing on defense. So how can you like do that? And there's a lot of that goes on. And the same thing from a defensive standpoint, attacking an offense. There is something to having a wise old owl in the back of the room that can say, no, you're thinking about this wrong. Here are the weak points of this coverage or how they're attacking us. You would like to have that kind of divergent thought to allow you to grow, but to allow you to put together the best plans that you can have going forward.
Bucky, in wrapping up here, you did a lot of work leading up to the draft on the Bucky Brooks Show. Post-draft, a couple drafts did you really love around the National Football League?
Pop, I'm gonna tell you, I am a huge fan of people that draft to their identity. And so, like, obviously, I love what the Giants did, because to me, that is drafting to who they are and who they need to be, particularly under John Harbaugh. The physicality, the toughness, the discipline, the smarts, all of that works. I think your counterparts in New York, the Jets, drafted very well, because when you're a team that has been losing, it's really important that you change the culture. Well, how do you change the culture? One, you get veterans from winning teams to be able to spread the message in the locker room. So they were able to do that. But then you go get players from winning programs in college. Their first 4 picks all participated in the college football playoff. So what you have is now a small group that are used to the standards and expectations that come with winning. I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also did a really good job of getting back to their identity. Ty Bowles being a Jersey guy, preferring a physical brand of ball. Well, Ruben Bain, Josiah Trotter, you go and get Keontae Scott, all guys that are rugged in their demeanor and their playing style, and they play with an edge, but give fanatical effort. You want to change the building, you have to get guys that have inherently what you believe in already in them. It's hard to change a person, but you can change the environment by bringing the people that embody what you're about. And I think those 3 teams got back to business by getting the people that they want in the building that reflect how they want to play.
All right. Well, Bucky, we appreciate you taking a couple minutes to join us. Fans, you can
this has been great.
Yeah, the Bucky Brooks Show, part of the Bleav podcast network. Do you get a chance to take a little bit of a break now, Bucky?
Oh, no days off. We get right to it. Like, this is the fun part. Now we get a chance to see how all the new toys that you get to see them in mini camp and training camp and speculate. Like, this is the good part. Now we get to see them on the grass. So now I'm excited about that part of it.
All right. Yeah. We appreciate it. We enjoyed the visit. As always welcome to the program, and continued success on your show, which continues to grow and grow and grow here on Bleav, the Bucky Brooks Show. We appreciate it, Bucky.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Carl, how do we like to end it?
Thanks, Buck. All right. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Bleav in Giants.
Bleav in Giants.